Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now we're going to take a look at the impact of the Easter attacks on the tourism industry and to find out a little bit more about the relief measures that the government has brought in for the sector. So joining me from Frontier Research is product head Travis Gomez. Welcome back to the show, Travis. Now just to start off and to lay the foundation, just tell us what was the government expecting from the tourism industry prior to the attacks?
Looking at what was happening towards the end of 2018, given that we had like the political crisis and all of that, going into 2019, there was a lot of expectations that this would sort of like be the year that there's going to be a strong rebound in tourism. And, they saw the marketing campaign was working. They were proposing to have this, the visa-free entry. So there were a lot of expectations riding on that. And based on that, they were expecting like about 3 million tourist arrivals. And looking at the first quarter performance, it seemed to suggest that we would be going there. If you take like March, there was a tourist arrivals, they increased by about 6%, earnings went up by 5%. So there's a lot of optimism going into the year.
Post the attacks, Travis, there are a lot of numbers being spotted around as to how much the industry would actually lose. Could you just clarify those numbers, please?
In terms of the numbers, looking at the April numbers that were recently released, so that has clearly shown there was a drop. There's like a 7.5% drop in the arrivals, and the expectations are, and looking at what has sort of like the similar impacts that have been there in other countries which have seen this kind of attacks, it's what they're expecting is about there'll be like a 1.5 billion decrease in terms of the tourist earnings for this year. As well as going into the expectations, there's definitely going to be a significant impact on the numbers of arrivals, and what they're expecting is they've revised it down by 1 million. They're expecting more or less the tourist arrivals to be flat this year at 2 million.
What about the relief package that the government has offered for the tourism sector? What are your thoughts on that?
I think definitely it's a good, in terms of it gives a good signal to the market, and because what we've seen is with the hotel operators, even prior to this, they were struggling a bit with that, so definitely this would be a positive thing. But I feel one area that I think they need to focus on more is particularly with the informal sector and the supplementary tourist establishment, because if you look at the past trend for the last 5-6 years, it's very much that has been the industry that has really been driving this. So it's not just the hotel operators, it's even the drivers, the tourist guides. There's a whole like an ecosystem that is affected. So I think they need to take that into account as well. So some of the measures might go towards it, like for example, they have proposed for the loans that have been given for SME loans, they have been encouraging the banks and the finance companies to reduce the lending rates on them, and they've been taking some measures according to that. So things like that would help, because a lot of those SME loans would be for these kind of supplementary establishments. So I think the other aspect was with regard to this moratorium on the interest rate payments. So again, there's not a lot of clarity in terms of who is able to get this benefit.
So what else should be done now to begin the rebuilding process for this industry?
The focus has to be there has to be like a clear message from the government to show that this situation has been returned to normalcy, because looking at the trends in other countries as well, when it comes to like a terrorism related impacts, it takes about a year to recover. So very much what the sort of message we need to put out is that this was like a one-off thing, and things are getting back to normal. The danger we want to avoid is it becoming a prolonged issue where it like evolves into sort of like a political crisis, because we saw even like 2 weeks after there was some disruptions that were happening in different parts of the island. So because if you and that's the situation we want to avoid, because if you look at a country like Egypt, that was something that happened to them. So starting with 2011 with the Arab Spring, after that they had these continuous sort of disruptions where they had a political coup, they had like terrorism related things. So because of that, even today the tourist arrivals numbers has not recovered to what it was. So that's the situation you really want to avoid.
Thank you very much for joining us, Travis.
Thank you.
That was product head of Frontier Research, Travis Gomez. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again